Mr. Lyndon Johnson, Caddo Commissioner. Hey, Mr. Lyndon, welcome to KEEL. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Well, we've got was it a federal judge yesterday who sort of removed the Daughters of the Confederacy from the whole case about moving the Confederate monument? Bring us up to date. Tell me what's the latest news.
Basically, Judge James over in Monroe District basically gave the Caddo Parish Commission, granted us a motion of summary judgment, and then he dismissed the Daughters of Confederacy claim.
So, to summarize, I guess, you guys, the Caddo Commission now has complete 100% control and rule over the monument and the land around it?
Based on the judge's decision, I would say yes, but I'm quite sure that it's not over with yet.
What do you mean?
The Daughters of the Confederacy say are planning to appeal this federal judge's ruling. You're anticipating that, right?
Yes. That's why I said it's not over with yet.
God, this could go all the way to the Supreme Court, huh?
Well, I mean, if they want to keep appealing it, yes. But typically, I think the judge took his time to come up with a rendering on it, and based upon that, I really don't see another judge to overturn it.
What did he say in the ruling with regard to the ownership? Is there verbiage in there to say clearly this is Caddo Parish land?
Well, I hadn't had a chance to read it all. We just got the information yesterday, so and it's about 20 pages, I think. I hadn't got down the page that far down yet.
So in terms of actually moving the monument, you wouldn't be for doing that until this appeal is completely done, correct?
Correct. That would be the wisest decision to do, is to wait until the appeal process is over.
You know, originally, and I think it was Commissioner Mike Middleton that said it would be a minimum of 2 years before this thing ever got settled, and a lot of people scoffed at that, but now that looks like it might be the case, huh?
I think it might be less than 2 years, because it's such an important issue right now that we'll continue to push, at least on our end, to make sure that the judges don't just sit on it and try to give us an answer so we can move forward.
Talking to Caddo Parish Commissioner Lyndon Johnson, my worry is, I've lived here 30-plus years. We spent a lot of doggone money fighting over this. Any idea on the dollar amount that we've spent legally to keep this thing going?
Well, one thing is, right now we're actually using our parish attorney, Ms. Donna Frazier, to represent the commission, and so that cuts out a lot of the costs that you would typically have.
Are there any meetings, sort of behind closed doors get-togethers between the commission and the Daughters of the Confederacy to sort of work out a deal with third parties involved as to another spot to put the monument?
That hasn't happened yet.
Would you, as the commissioner, if they came to you today, if the phone rang, if Mr. Lyndon Johnson's phone rang and it was the DUC, or Daughters of the Confederacy, sorry, and they said, can we kind of work a deal out? Can we kind of put all this to rest? Would you be open to that? And do you think other commissioners would?
Yes, as long as that deal is to move it, I'll be open to it.
Does the monument bother you as much as the monument on the courthouse property bother you?
This being on the courthouse property, if you put it, like I said, if it's a memorial, it probably should go in a cemetery, and if it's history, it should go into a museum. So depending on how you look at it.
Well, there have been other offers from other locations that they've said, listen, we'll take it. Does it really in the end come down to who's going to pay to carefully and respectfully move the statue?
Well, the first responsibility would be the Daughters of Confederacy. If it's their statue, so they would be the ones who would be deemed to first move it.
Wait, pardon me. Excuse me, you just said it's their statue.
Their statue. It's our ground, but their statue.
That's an interesting point, Because some have said it could be $1 million to move it. I mean, we don't know. What if they say
well,
we're not
that much.
We're not moving
if
it?
If you look at some of the other statues that were moved around the state, it didn't cost $1 million.
What would you as a commissioner be willing to spend to move it? If somebody said, listen, if you guys pick up half the cost, how high would you be willing to go?
I don't know. It all depends. And was there a bid process? I mean, do we have at least three quotes? Not just the first person that comes up and say, well, I'll move it for X amount of dollars. Wouldn't go for that. But, we had three legitimate bids, and then we could look at it and analyze it and then move forward with it.
If the daughters, I'm worried this might get to a point where the daughters don't move it. You guys, compel them to move it, and they don't. And then you guys say, well, then we're going to just tear it down and destroy it. Do you see it coming to that?
No. The intention was never to tear it down and destroy it. It's basically to move it. So, I keep hearing that people saying that we were supposed to be tearing it down and destroying it, but that was not the intent. The intent was to actually move it from the courthouse.
Do you anticipate in the next few days or weeks or whatever the time frame happens to be? You said it hasn't happened yet. Do you anticipate, would the commission approach the Daughters of the Confederacy, since the Daughters of the Confederacy haven't, I guess, approached the commission?
On my end, I wouldn't, but I'll be open if they would come and say that they would like to sell it outside of the court. And like I said, and the decision is to move it.
Now, that's interesting. Why? You said I wouldn't. Why wouldn't you reach out to them? Why wouldn't you say, look, this is a mess. It's wasting money. Why can't we work something out? Why would you not pick up the phone?
The reach out was actually done before all of this. We had the Citizens Advisory Panel. We had motions from the floor. I mean, we went through a whole process in which we could have worked some out. They chose to go a different route, and so that's where we are now.
That troubles me a little bit too, Lyndon, and I know you'll be candid. The Citizens Advisory Committee proposed something other than moving it, and the Caddo Commission did something different. Explain.
Right.
Explain, because that was about a year-long process. Explain why you guys did that.
Because the committee was stacked. There were some members of a Confederate group that was in there. When we tried to add another member, when one member resigned, the commission failed to do that. So they told me at that time they was not willing to make sure that we had a panel that was basically non-biased. And just some of the comments that, you try to make sure that the panel should have been people who wasn't just tied directly to it, one way or the other. We didn't put anybody on there that was, I guess you say, like a militant. So we was trying to get people who were open-minded and to listen to the citizens. And as the meetings went on, some of those meetings, I felt that they didn't have enough of them inside of the city limits. There was one inside the city limits, one north of town, and one south. The one north of town was up in Blanchard. The one south, I can't remember where it was, but it was, there wasn't enough to poll the parish right.
Mr. Lyndon, sounds to me, pardon me, like both sides are steadfast in this thing working its way through the system, working its way through the courts, right? You see no compromise in the future.
Well, I see a compromise if they come and say we want to see if we can do this, outside of the court. And like I said, the compromise would be not appealing it, but to still move it.
But in your mind, it's up to them to make the next move.
Yes.